What's the definition of a degenerate? Having lost the physical, mental, or moral qualities that are considered normal or desirable. And if you're watching a fantasy football channel right now in February, you probably consider yourself a fantasy football degenerate, which is absolutely okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're a fantasy football degenerate, there may be a chance that you're playing in some Dynasty leagues. So let's ramp up that Dynasty content and talk about some guys you should be targeting right now. For 2023, we've planned on ramping up a little bit more Dynasty content than what we have done in years past. And some of you have been asking for it, and our response have been, it's only January, it's only February, give it some time. Well, now I think it's time to really start diving more into some Dynasty content. The NFL Combine's coming up, the NFL Draft is going to be here before you know it, and some of you are probably already making plans to prepare for your draft or prepare your team for some sort of an off-season transition, whether it's to win a championship this year or maybe rebuild that squad. So before some values start to change too much, especially with free agency on the horizon, I've got 3 guys that we're going to talk about in this video that you may want to take a stab at right now. First up is going to be Minnesota's KJ Osborn, and with the potential that Adam Thielen could be cut to save a little bit of money, KJ Osborn could step up into that wide receiver 2 role that has been productive in years past. Now, the reason we're buying KJ Osborn right now and not waiting is because if they do cut Adam Thielen, it's going to cost you a pretty penny to get KJ Osborn. But right now, not a whole lot has changed for him. So if you were to move a little preemptively to pick him up, you're going to get him at a discount right now. It's not going to cost you a whole lot. Why could KJ Osborn have a step up into fantasy relevancy this season? Well, to end the 2022 year, we saw a little bit of a glimpse of what he could do. Now, TJ Hawkinson will have been in Minnesota for a full offseason, so that could change some things, but I still think KJ Osborn could see enough targets to warrant flex or wide receiver 3 consideration every week. From week 14 through week 18 to end 2022, KJ Osborn put up some pretty decent numbers. Per game, he averaged 6 receptions on 7.6 targets, while averaging just over 77 yards a game, and he scored 3 touchdowns during that time. So for that span of the season, he was the wide receiver 7. Again, nobody's looking at KJ Osborn as being a game changer right now, so he's not going to cost a whole lot. But if they move on from Adam Thielen, then at that point, you are going to have gotten KJ Osborn on the cheap. If you're going to add him, you're going to want to do it now. The writing is all but on the wall with the Philadelphia Eagles. It appears that they will be moving on from Miles Sanders this offseason. So will the former 5th-round draft pick Kenneth Gainwell be stepping up for a larger role in this offense? Or will they be adding a free agent or maybe somebody through the draft? Again, we've got another guy whose current value isn't all that much. No one's going to be asking for a ton if you come up to them and say, hey, are you willing to trade Gainwell? It's just not going to happen. But if the Eagles decide that they're not going to draft a running back or add anyone big named in free agency, Gainwell's value is only going to go up from there. We saw his role start to expand in the playoffs this year. One thing to keep in mind that in 2 of those games, it was a blowout for the Eagles, so they could have afforded to give Gainwell a little bit more touches. But will any of that transition over to 2023? In the playoffs, Gainwell averaged just over 60 yards on the ground on 11 carries per game. He also chipped in the passing game a little bit, averaging just over 3 targets a game, catching 2 of those a game for about 18 yards. So yes, the numbers don't blow you out of the water by any means, but again, he's not going to cost you much, and he could be some really good depth for your team if the Eagles decide not to do anything. And you know what? If they do bring in a running back that ends up being the main guy outside of Gainwell, so what? You probably didn't spend that much to begin with anyway. Everyone seems to have forgotten about Rashod Bateman, a breakout candidate for so many people last year. Nobody seems to be talking about him anymore. One of the biggest reasons why is Lamar Jackson's contract. People are scared that Jackson is not going to be in Baltimore next season. I like to be a little bit more optimistic. I don't think Jackson is going to be out of Baltimore. I think he'll be their starting quarterback. So for recency bias, we haven't seen Rashod Bateman in a while. He got injured, he tried to come back, ended up getting hurt again, didn't play the rest of the season. He didn't give you really any help last year, so people have just forgotten about him. Also, a lot of talk about the Ravens adding another wide receiver, either free agency or through the draft. But don't forget, last season, Bateman got off to a pretty good start, the wide receiver 21 in weeks 1 through 3. During that time, he averaged just over 2 receptions on 5 targets and just over 75 receiving yards per game. If they're able to add a vertical threat on the other side of Bateman to help expand the field and take some of those defenders with him, then Bateman and Andrews are absolutely going to eat over the middle. Bateman has enough talent to be a wide receiver 1, but he's not the vertical threat that Marquise Brown was in this offense. He needs somebody on the other side to help with that so he doesn't see so much double coverage. Now, if that happens in this offense, Rashod Bateman absolutely could end up being a guy that at worst is a low-end wide receiver 2. 3 guys you need to run out and try to buy right now. Hit that like button before you get out of here. Let me know in the comments if you appreciate the Dynasty content and there's any other Dynasty stuff you want us to talk about. And if you're new here, you absolutely got to subscribe and stick around. Peace out, stay safe and stay healthy, and I'll see y'all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.